And so I asked myself, I said, do my ragamuffins actually understand what a fraction is? That it's a numerator compared to a denominator? That the denominator tells me how many pieces there are in the whole, and that the numerator tells me how many parts I'm dealing with? I also want people to understand what a unit fraction is, with a numerator of 1. And if we had to compare fractions, that we could look at fractions with the same denominator, and we could also look at fractions with the same numerator. I'd like for us to be able to find an equivalent fraction given any fraction that I could multiply both the numerator and the denominator by the same factor, which is essentially multiplying it by 1, so that I'm not changing the value. I want to be able to look at a whole and shade the number of pieces that show what a fraction is. I also want to use a number line, and I want to be able to show what a fraction, where a fraction is on the number line, and at the same time use two different number lines to compare my work. So let's take a look at the first question. I'm asked to shade 3/4 of a rectangle. I know that 4 means I've got 4 equal parts of a whole. My numerator being 3 means I need to shade 3 out of those 4 parts. So one part's going to be left blank. That's the 1/4 that would make it a whole. In question 2, I'm asked to locate and label the number 1 on the number line, but I'm only given a third. The denominator 3 tells me I have to divide the whole into 3 equal parts, which I have, and clearly labeled 1 whole. Part B says to locate and label 3/4 on the number line, and then explain. My number line goes from 0 to 1, and then I have to look at my denominator to tell me how many parts I have to break the whole into, which is 4. Once I've done that, my numerator tells me how many parts out of 4 that I care about, and so I clearly label 3/4 on the number line with a nice red dot. The second part of the question asks me to explain why I chose that point. And so, as I said earlier, what I know is the denominator 4 told me how many parts I had to divide the whole into. And then once I divided the whole into 4 parts, I was able to simply count 1, 2, and 3. The third question is asking me what fraction of the rectangle is shaded. So I have to first count how many parts there are in the entire rectangle, and then look at how many parts out of the entire rectangle are shaded. So I see here that 2 out of 8 parts are shaded, and hello, that's choice E right there. If I break my whole into 4 parts, I can see that 1 part out of 4 is shaded, which allows me to choose choice B confidently. For problem 4, I have to write 2 fractions that are equivalent to 1/2. They're the same amount made with different pieces. That's what's important to understand. So if I multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same factor, in the first case 3, in the second 4, I find that 3/6 is equal to 4/8, which is equal to 1/2, which is basically just different ways of showing the same amount. For problem number 5, I'm being asked to pay attention to which fraction is equivalent to 8/4. I notice right away that my numerator, 8, is larger than my denominator, which lets me know that there's something a little different about this particular fraction. So if I'm talking about fourths here, I take my whole and I divide it into 4 equal parts, and I'm careful to label it 1/4 for each of the 4 parts. But I'm asked for 8/4. My numerator tells me how many pieces I need, which means I need a whole other whole, a second whole, in order to get to 8/4. And so that's my total, 2 wholes. Well, choice B is 1/4. That's obviously not 2 wholes. So now I have to take a look at each of the other choices. 10/5 is the same as 2 wholes. 10/6 is 1 whole and 4 extra sixths. And 15/5, that's 3 wholes. Obviously, that one isn't correct either. In this problem, Diego says that there are no fractions equivalent to 4 because 4 is a whole number. Do you agree? And explain. Well, I do not agree because 4 can be shown as a whole number 4 over 1. And if I multiply 4 over 1 by the factor of 2, the numerator and the denominator, I get 8 halves. And you can see here, if I divide my 4 wholes into separate halves, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 halves, which is 8 over 2. This proves that 4 over 1 is a fraction. 4 wholes is a fraction. Problem 7. I'm supposed to select all, oh boy, A-L-L, all caps, all of those that are true. So I have to be careful and look at these one at a time. The first one, 5/4 and 6/4 have the same denominator 4. Question B are both unit fractions with the numerator of 1. Question C has the same denominator 7. Question D, again, unit fractions, 1 as the numerator. And question E has the same numerator 2, which means I have the same number of pieces. So question A is 5/4 more than 6/4, less than 6/4? Correct, 5 is less than 6. 1/4 deals with bigger pieces. It's smaller than a fifth. B is wrong. C has sevenths. 3 pieces are less than 4 pieces of the same size. Correct. D, 1/5 is greater than 1/6. Yes, bigger pieces. And the last choice is wrong. Problem 8. I have to locate 1/2 on the number line, and I'm given 1/8. Well, the denominators just told me I need 8 equal parts to make the whole. But to find 1/2, I need 4 out of 8, which is half of all the 8s. So I'm going to label 1/2 right under 4/8. Question 8b, explain why this number line is incorrect. So I look at it, and right away I see 1/2 is before 1/3. That's wrong. I'm going to remove 1/2, and I'm going to give my number line 3 equal parts, since that's what 1/3 shows. And 1/2 is exactly halfway between 0 and 1. So it's going to go right in between 1/3 and 2/3. The last question asks me, what is the fraction that used to be in the place where the 1/2 was in front of the 1/3, where it previously sat? So what I'm going to do is make equal parts. I see that there are 6 equal parts. I'm going to label my number line with the 6, and 1/6 is exactly where the 1/2 was first. So a lot's happened very quickly in this review of 8 questions, and I hope that you can appreciate the fact that fractions are equal parts of a whole. A unit fraction has a numerator of 1. Equivalent fractions are exactly the same amount. However, they're made up of different size pieces. And you can compare fractions by looking to see if you're dealing with the same denominator, in which case you're dealing with the same size pieces, or you can look at if it's a unit fraction, in which case a denominator that has a larger number has more pieces in the whole and are therefore smaller fractions. Or I can look at the same numerator. The same numerator means I've got the same number of pieces, but if the denominators are different sizes, I can make a decision from there. If it's the same number of a smaller piece, then I know which one is larger. So that's a lot. I hope that helps. Good luck on the test.
I'm coming for throws to turn to a ghost. I need to know everything. I need to know everything. Who and the what and the where. I need everything. Trust me, I hear what you're saying, but act like it's new what you're telling me. I'm curious, George. I hop in the Porsche, it's 5 and a horse. I'm ready for war. I'm coming for throws to turn to a ghost. I need to know everything.